Hello and welcome to a look at the Willow pattern adventure for the Commodore 64. The game that was released by Firebird. In this game you play the role as Chang, who has to go and rescue the Princess Kung Shi. And in order to do so he has to, of course, locate her first by navigating a quite complicated maze and avoiding the guards in the process. Once he eventually locates Kung Shi, her father is not going to be overly impressed by the fact that someone's trying to run away with his daughter, and he is going to give chase. And the aim after locating the princess is to get down to a boat that is waiting on the western side of the maze. Along the way, Chang will bump into various guards. Some of them will throw their swords at him because it makes perfect sense, and some of them will not, but will still block paths. By the way, that is the connection to the boat. It will not unlock before we have the princess in tow. But anyway, these guards, they don't like their swords, so they throw them at Chang. And of course you can pick them up and throw them back, because fair is fair. And while moving about, trying to navigate the maze and work out the path through the maze, there are various different objects that you can pick up that will give a percentage in your score, because your score is percentage based. I'm fairly sure you don't technically need to reach 100% score in order to actually complete the game. I'm fairly sure that the optional objects can be ignored if that's what you feel like. From a graphical point of view, I mean, this is a cheap range game and you can only expect so much from cheap range games, but by and large, except for the fact that the color usage for individual enemies and all that stuff may not be the most varied, it works, it's functional, it's perfectly functional. The maze is described as being beautiful, and while definitely not ugly by any means, I wouldn't necessarily use the term beautiful, but it's serviceable. I will happily take it. The sound, of course, is the music, and the music I find, I know the tune is extremely repetitive because it loops very quickly, but you as you probably noticed when you pick up a saber, sword thing, whatever, a sharp object, long the handle, it increases the speed of the music, making, in my opinion, the music sound rather cool. And I definitely prefer the version where you run around with your weapon or a weapon compared to the more calm version of the music track. The music is definitely, while repetitive, something of a highlight of this game. You probably wouldn't necessarily want to listen to that soundtrack while not playing the game though, because of its quite extensive repetitiveness, I think it's called, in a language that resembles English. But while playing the game, it is entirely endurable and enjoyable, if you like it, of course. If you don't like it, you're going to hate every single bit of it, and that would be sad if you're trying to play this game, unless you want to play without sound, of course. That is an option. You can always turn the volume down. The gameplay, of course, is the meat of any game, and the gameplay is a bit frustrating, I would say, because I mean, you are navigating a maze, which is one thing. I mean, navigating a maze is, if you can keep track of where you're going, then that's cool, but if you can't, then the maze is amazingly frustrating to circumvent. But the real challenge in the game is the fact that you have opponents blocking certain paths, and some of them will toss swords at you and some of them will not. And of course you can't bypass them in any way. You can't do any kung fu, tai chi, judo, whatever else you might imagine against them, so without a sword you will not get rid of them. There are limited amounts of spare swords, sabers, whatever things they are, lying about, and the key to beating this game is first and foremost, of course, to know the maze well enough to navigate it, but also to know where you can safely use the swords and where you shouldn't be using them, because the game will happily tempt you to kill an opponent using a sword that you don't technically need to kill, and then you get to a point where you need to progress and you just can't progress because you got those swords available, and whoever is blocking your path is not the type that will actually toss a sword at you. That, by the way, is part of the excitement of the game, is when you have to provoke a guard to toss a sword so you can use it against them without being hit yourself. You can only carry one sword at a time, and if you carry a sword and you get killed, you will lose the sword. So basically, because of the amount of swords available and the fact that you have to be very, very careful about where you use them, you can gimp yourself quite dramatically by losing a sword. So for gameplay purposes, probably don't be too hesitant using them. Sometimes you will get to sections where you have to go across water, where some giants are waiting on top of the bridge, trying to smack you into the water by plonking you in the head, and you have to jump from stone to stone in order to cross the water bit. It's not being showcased in this video because I ran the other way, but it's, with a bit of patience, it's not overly challenging. This is one game I've always wanted to complete but never got around to, and the reason why I've never got around to it is because you basically need to draw a map and need to make a mental note of where to use your swords and where not to use your swords, because they are a limited resource. And at the end of this video I will get into a spot where I just cannot progress, I just have to game over, which of course becomes a frustration point, but that is also likely the main reason why I've never actually bothered trying to get further into the game. This is probably the furthest I've been into any game I've played of this game ever, but I would love to see this game being speedrun. Maybe I should try and make a speedrun of it myself, because I'm convinced that if someone's playing this game knowing exactly what they're doing, exactly where they're supposed to go, exactly where every single sword has to be applied, this could be an amazing speedrun to look at, or cool one at least. For a cheap range game, it's definitely not bad. If you got the patience to learn the maze and learn where you're supposed to use your swords, you'll probably find a lot of enjoyment out of it. On that note, thanks for watching, take care, see you next time, bye bye.